the chair.
on the
Just
chair.
make yourself comfortable. When you're rolling, let me know.
It's rolling. You know,
Jenifer,
Can you like do it from here up?
Pretty much.
It's,
Yeah.
Okay.
Give me your full name, your age, and today's date.
Oh my God. Those are okay.
Full name.
Jenifer Ann Roberts.
Jenifer Ann Roberts.
Okay. My age.
Yes, please.
Do I really have to tell you how old I am?
Yes, please.
Let's see. When you get to my age, count backwards and forget what your birth date is as far as years go. So let's see. I'm 48.
48. And today's date.
Today's date. July 3rd.
July 3rd, that's right. All right, so the most important thing to me, Jenifer, is I see all this energy that you're putting into this project, into Apolloween. So I want you to tell me when, as a young girl, that horror started talking to you and how this thing becomes such a passion that you're willing to sacrifice your July 4th weekend to make sure this stays on track. So let's talk about how you became a fan of this genre. What talked to you?
Well, as most people, I guess, around my age group, I was honestly into video games. And, but I loved watching movies. My uncle is a famous casting director. I'm not going to give his name because then people are going to bother me to be in contact because he knows Steven Spielberg and George Lucas. So that kind of gives you, I was on movie sets and that type of thing growing up, so I was very fascinated with movies. But I also loved old horror movies like Vincent Price at a very young age, to the point my mother thought that I should have a therapist because I learned how to hotwire the cable box at the age of 7 to get all the horror movies for free. So obviously you can tell I like technology too. And the earliest movie that I had watched was The Last Unicorn. And fans of The Last Unicorn will know Stan Lee, you know. So there's a lot of information that you glean growing up from different types of movies and stuff like that that you get out of it. Actually, it wasn't Stan Lee. It was the other one. Christopher Lee.
Christopher Lee.
I apologize, Stan Lee, but you can rank right up there. It's Christopher Lee. And, you know, I started doing research and found out all the movies that he did. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this entire genre. So at a very early age, probably inappropriate for a child, I was watching horror movies. I remember when I watched Jaws, because I was asleep in the top bunk bed, had a horrible nightmare and fell out of it. I thought I was going to be attacked by a shark, but I thought it was fascinating. So I used to trail around certain family members that were on movie sets and watch how they did makeup and special effects and got to see all the behind the scenes. And I just always had a fascination that continued up through my teenage years. I was a huge Stephen King fan and just loved reading everything he had. I always made a point of going. I was a military brat, so you really were a loner most of the time, went to a lot of private schools. So I didn't make a lot of friends, so I had to stay in my own little bubble of my horror movies, my books, that type of thing. And then I got out of school. I graduated in Hawaii because we were stationed there. Moved over stateside. And then I was married for a short stint. After I got out of that thing, that's when I decided that I wanted to pursue the opportunity to do makeup, special effects, props, and that type of thing. Mm-hmm. So my friend Dean, who happens to be here today, was somebody I worked with. I've known him since I was like 18. I'm not from this area. Okay. I just ended up here by way of marriage. So when we got to work one time, he's like, hey, I saw some advertising that the Apollo's looking for volunteers for a haunted house. I'm like, oh, really? That's interesting. Up until that time, I've just been going to conventions like Horrifying and Monster Mania and meeting a lot of people that were in the genre and having the same interests. I never fathomed having my own haunted house, even though I've always wanted to do something in a haunt. Fortunately, I'm a leader, not a follower, so that wouldn't have worked too well without me running the whole thing. So I can only follow for so long. So anyhow, we came to the theater. At the time, it was run by a gentleman who's no longer here. I honestly can't remember his name. I apologize. He's one of the teachers at the school. He, unfortunately, his life ended shortly. And he was here with a bunch of the theater kids. They're like, look, we need to keep the theater running. We're not bringing money in.
What year is this?
This would have been, I started, probably was about 2007, because I didn't start the haunt until 2009. So 2007, they had a group of kids. Well, honestly, they didn't give us the time of day. I'm not blaming the theater. but we're not theatrical people, and they were theatrical, and then we're like, okay, we don't exist. So I went off, pursued my own thing, worked with a couple other haunted houses and helped them do props and special effects. I've always been into nonprofit and giving back to the community, and I just never saw myself as being in a for-profit, because then if I mess up, I can get yelled at, fired. Then it really counts. I can mess up as much as I want to, not getting paid. What are you going to do? I'm just making the money. So the following year, I guess everything had fallen through. I honestly didn't go through the haunt. I think they said that the theme at the time was the ring. The entire theater was the ring. I don't know how you do one theme throughout the entire theater. It's kind of boring.
Right.
I like a little diversity. I don't like seeing the same thing or being screamed at. I cannot stand that. So the following year, I get a call. And you think this is tight? 3 months? Because I usually need 7 months to be creative. 3 weeks. You have 3 weeks. We need you ASAP. We need money to pay for the theater to cover the gas bill. I'm like, okay. I've never built a haunted house. I've been in haunted houses. What do we have to work with? We have no money. I'm like, great. What about the fire codes? Well, they gave me the list of fire codes. I'm like, we're going to need to bend the rules because we're going to have to build it out of plastic. That's the only thing we can do. PVC, plastic, throw it up really quick. And actually some of the actors from the theater, because I had been doing other things for the theater at that time, the website, some of their computer networking stuff. And they graciously came in. We only used the ballroom. And believe it or not, it was a huge success. Everybody loved it. That was very early on when my daughter was actually helping me. She wasn't into the horror. She used to be embarrassed by me driving the hearse taking her to school every day in the hearse. She thought that was embarrassing. Now she wants to drive the hearse. But I taught her early on, I need you to help me do makeup, because I didn't know a lot of makeup artists other than myself. And I've been doing it for quite some time, not only to props and special effects, but to people, upon request. And and I explained to her, I said, make sure you do all the makeup tests, especially with latex. Well, she's only 9 years old, and she's helping me at this time. And we have a kid that had an allergic reaction. Well, we had a burn scene. His whole face lit. I said, we need to take you to the emergency room. Oh, no, I'm in true character. I'm like, can we at least put some Neosporin on your face? You're scaring me. He goes, oh, no, this is really cool. And in true form, everybody loved it. They had so much fun. We had such great feedback. At that time, I said, well, we want to expand. If we made that much money with no preparation, what can we do with donations? And because it's a fundraiser, you can't really spend money. You need to get donations and more space. So I said, I want to use the whole theater. Well, the third floor at the time, which I'm sure you've already had pictures of, was at least 6 to 8 foot high, full of trash, from the windows on Martin Street all the way to the back where the costume is now. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. It took us an entire year worth of dumpsters and asking for forgiveness, because I didn't care what was up there. It was getting thrown out. Obviously, it's not used. The only things we salvaged was things that were not broken and not covered in mold, and the Christmas stuff. So you got to figure it took almost a year to clean that entire third floor out. And then we had to replace the entire floor except for where the costume room area is, and water seal it because we had known ceiling issues, and I just wanted to make sure everything was safe. We also had to build the tower at that time because I needed a control tower, and that's where the tower came in. We had to reinforce the stairs. There's a lot of structural work we had to do. There was no bathroom up there. That came years later. And then now we had to start finding donors. So graciously, Berkeley Theater 7, which to our day still supports the Apollo Civic Theater, they gave us money. And then the local, it's either a county or local police department, I apologize if I have it mixed up, it's so long ago, gave us community service workers. They had to carry, and yes, I remember, 147 sheets of 3/4 inch plywood upstairs. And Glenn Goulet, who unfortunately is, not with us right now, it's not because he passed away, he just has medical things he has to handle. He and I both took the nail gun and we nailed that entire thing, got it down, got it sealed, so that when the following year came, we could then start constructing the haunt. So we needed donations again, and this time we also got community service again. Thank God, because you saw all the stairs get up to the third floor.
Right.
And that was about 244 2x4s and 57 sheets of Luan. Strange what you remember.
All this is, and all those materials were money that you had raised. You raised money to basically rehab the third floor to be able to do your haunt.
Correct. So
And which year is this?
this would have been probably between 2008 and 2009.
Okay.
We didn't open the first year until 2009. At that time, we actually had the third floor done. Now remember, putting the third floor was just me, myself, Dean, and maybe one or two other people. Everybody says they want to help, they don't help. I did have a crew when we actually put the flats together to make sure they were all perfectly 4x8. And we got everything braced and stood up. And then of course during this entire time I had to design it from scratch. I had to, with no experience at all, so I had the greatest idea. Not to do any type of copyright infringement, but take the idea of horror movies that are known and do scenes that no one's ever seen before. Not advertise that it's Freddy Krueger or whatever.
Right.
So we created a theatrical haunt, something nobody else had. I didn't want to do what everybody else did. We had actual actors or trained actors from the Youth Theater Workshop and YSTW, which is the same thing, because you have Youth Theater Company and the YSTW part. At the time, Youth Theater Company didn't exist. So at the end of YSTW, which is the end of the summer, those kids would volunteer. So the opening scene was a set that I would tell them how I want it built, and they would build it. All the costuming, they would do the costuming, the makeup, everything. That was part of their classes. And they came up with some amazing things. They did ad libs. So we had a ton of the kids. All the younger kids were down here because they didn't want the older kids with little kids. So they did the opening scene. And that brought the theater into it still. We had an entire presentation that said, "Welcome to the Apollo Civic Theater." And the whole point is to bring people to the theater that have never come here before. Haunt people don't go to live theater.
Right.
So we're bringing a new audience in of stuff. So, and then of course you got the ballroom. The ballroom's always been a maze. That was about 47 flats. And it's a nightmare when you have to go to the trailer, and it's always hot, and bringing up all those stairs and install the maze. And then after you get the maze, for years we used to have rooms in there as well, but it got, because we only have a week between the last show and the time the haunt opens, I took the rooms out, made it a black maze, put a couple spook areas in there. And then of course you go up to the third floor. The third floor was all the theatrical performances based on the different horror movies. So if you're an old horror movie fan, because some of the new kids wouldn't get it, you hear the theme music, you're like, that's The Exorcist. Oh, wait,
Right.
that's Poltergeist. What's going to happen?
Right.
That's a Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which was our favorite room. And then you'll go out of there. We always use the same rooms. Even we're using the same rooms now, except for the stage. We're not doing the opening scene. I only have 3 months. I can't throw a crew together.
Right.
We will do something. It won't just, next year will be more elaborate and more detailed to what people expect. It'll still be amazing this year. It'll be completely different than what I've done in past years. But it's not going to be the haunted theater, because it's not going to be the haunted theater. It's going to be a completely separate attraction, but still a haunt. So after you go down the stairwell from the third floor, you then go into what we call the makeup room. And then we would have different haunted, horror movie type skits in there. And then you go down, you end in the green room, and then of course you leave the building. So that was the whole set. And that's always been the design. That always will be the design. It's the safest way to get in and get out. It's just every year it's always completely different. The walls are completely different. The shows, you'll never see the same thing. And a lot of folks said that because I gave the kids freedom, I said, I need the scare here because it triggers the lighting. I don't care what you do, but here's the script. You can change it around. So folks would say it was never the same. Even if they went through the same night or the following weekend, either the actors were changed up or somebody did something different, which was exciting to me. So we got really good feedback. So I ran that from 2009 into 2014. We were #1 in the tri-state area for the longest time. I mean, we had a limitation of how many people we could get through and everything, so sometimes we had to give VIP to go the following night, but we were always booked. We raised up to $30,000 a year, which helped pay for the electric bill, the gas bill.
Right.
It actually went into an account and helped with some of the other children type things, which we want, because the whole point was to get the kids off the street, kind of like the Boys and Girls Club.
Right.
They can come in here, help build sets, they can paint, they can act, they can do things, and it's all for free. So we took community service, we took all the young kids, we just kept them separated just in case. And we were just wide open of who can come and go as far as that with the theater. And then the only reason I stopped was because somebody decided to hit me head on in a car accident. So after months of recovery, the following year I asked a close friend of mine to take what's up there, change it around and do it. He did a great job to a certain extent. He didn't have the experience and knowledge I did, so I did have to come in and do all the designs and explain what needs to be done in between painkillers and get everything, from a management level and not actually doing it and just critique everything. He moved out of the area, so he wasn't able to pick it up, so some other people tried. and it just eventually failed after that. And but I still had a fundraiser every October. Whether the haunt was here or not, we still had the other Apolloween events, which is the Rocky Horror Picture Show, the Paranormal Investigations, and we always have a free movie for the kids to come see. So regardless of the haunt not being there, we still made money to support theater. And during that time period, a youth theater company came in, and they started making the money that we used to buffer it out. So we kind of evened out. So bringing the haunt back now is hopefully going to help us recover from COVID. And it's going to supplement, in addition to whatever the youth theater company, when they start back up, everything's starting back up in the fall. We're all starting back up in the fall, hopefully. And try to do some needed improvements, because we'll be able to afford them, you know, over the top of the money we spend on the electric and the upkeep of the building. And bringing the kids back, bringing everybody back to the theater, getting them back in the seats, you know, and enjoying the Apollo.
Let me give you 2 more questions.
Okay.
This one with this year. What is your theme? What is the vision that you have for this year's haunt? And then my follow-up question, my final question, is I want you to share with us your relationship with Matt Burns, how you met Matt Burns, and why, as it seems to be the universal. We're all here because Matt asked. So.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Your theme.
I normally don't tell people my theme, but if you want to know the theme, I guess we can. That's usually something
we can hold that if you want. Like we can.
Well, I can give you a hint. How's that?
Yeah. Tease us.
Okay, so
Tease.
You're in West Virginia. I can leave it at that. What do you think of when you come into West Virginia? And then we'll see what you experience. In other words, welcome to West Virginia, the Apollo Civic Theater style. So that's what we'll be presenting. What do I expect out of it? I expect it to be an amazing success. I have so much help. I have more help than I've ever had. I can't thank the people that have volunteered to make this successful, because I thought they were
Say
crazy.
the names of the people whose vision we will see in October. Who are your key players?
I have Amos, Andrea, Johnny, Matt, myself. We also have volunteers that are going to come and go, so I can't name all their names specifically because they'll be continuously coming. My friend Dean, that are all coming together, as well as the ones that haven't even come yet that will come eventually.
And Burns. Let's get on Burns.
Yes. So Burns. Honestly, one of the factors in my car accident is short-term memory. I do remember spots of things. It feels like I've known him forever. We've always been at the same conventions together. We always have been friends, to the fact that there was something haunt related. We always talk to each other about it. Hey, you need somebody, I need somebody, I need you to share this information. Hey, I need people. There's a nonprofit organization called Scares That Care that I volunteer at, and I'm the West Virginia State Rep. So he's always reaching out to me and saying, Jen, hey, can Scares come here and go to Creature Feature Weekend or go to Nightmares or all the other events? I'm like, sure, I'm the West Virginia State Rep. Let me reach out to Joe, see what I can get. So we've always been intertwined because the haunt community is very tight and very close. And we go way back. We go way back to, we've seen friends pass, and we've seen haunts rise and fall, especially with COVID, unfortunately. As a matter of fact, some of the people are coming to volunteers because their haunts are no longer here and they have no place to go. You can come home to us. But all the information, as you know, this is the Apollo Civic Theater. It's built back in 1914. So we came up with the name of Apolloween. Apolloween. Very simple. It's www.apolloween.com.
I've always liked it.
Yep. My friend John Jack is the one that came up with it. Genius. He knows how. You know John Jack. Everybody knows John Jack. He's like around he goes to all the cons. He knows Matt, knows everybody. He's just not here right now. He's busy working and doing some other nonprofit stuff. He does help the Apollo. So, and that's all the information I have. I can give you more later as time rolls on.
One more question. Your favorite horror filmmaker, your favorite director? Amos was Wes Craven. I'm just curious.
Actually, it's not really a director. It's actually, what is your favorite movie and actor that you're going to get from me? Because I kind of like a lot of them. Bruce Campbell is my future husband. If I have my way,
choice.
I have met the man
Choice.
10 times. I have sat on his lap at least a couple.
Choice.
And I said, if something happens, bless his wife's heart, I will move right next to him in Oregon. The original Evil Dead will always be my favorite.
Excellent choice.
Yeah. So,
Met him once, and he is a very nice guy who's just fun with the fans, you know. Just,
isn't it awful? I don't pay attention to producers, directors. Yes, I know Wes Craven. Yes, I know all these. I pay attention to the actors and their ability. I mean, that man has gone through so many different characters and not dropped the ball at all. It's kind of like, wait a second. Oh yeah, that's Bruce Campbell, because he can change and become whatever he needs to be, and has such a great personality. And The Evil Dead is just close to my heart.
Yeah, fantastic films. All right, then we'll grab Dave. He's our last one. Can I get a picture, Jennifer?
Sure.
With
I look.